Bird. Get him. Yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It's the 31st of July. That means what? We got one more month. We got one more month to just plow through, and we will be in hunting season. I'll be starting my season in Virginia with the dove opener with the whole fam damling. That's right. My daughter, all my daughters, and my son-in-laws, my wife, my grandkids. Now, obviously, only so many of us are going to shoot. Someone's got to stay back and watch the grandkids. But, yeah, we're going to be down there for the dove opener. So I hope you have great plans coming up for your dove or prairie bird opener on September 1st. If you don't, if you're struggling what to do, how to go, if you're still trying to figure out the stuff, I would suggest you become a Patreon patron. We got twice a month Zoom rooms, and this last one Thursday was a doozy. We got into a lot of stuff all about me and NAVDA and right and wrong and social media. We named names, and now my HDP talk people, they got wind of this before everybody. And I'll be doing that again this coming week, and that will be what was that during the Civil War? Where was that one place that the first shot was? Fort Sumter, something like that? That's going to be the shot heard around the world on the next HDP talk. Until then, I hope you didn't miss Pike Gear's open house on Saturday. That would have been yesterday, Saturday, the 29th. I couldn't get over there, had some family commitments, but I know they had a special open house from 10 to 2 to see all the new stuff, from the T-shirts to the new shirts to the new pants to the new everything new. No, not everything new. Some new colors, some new formats. It's not going to be around. If you wait till the middle of hunting season, you may have a problem getting your pike gear. I'm just telling you. So don't dilly and don't dally. And patrons, you write me before you buy your next pair of pike gear. You don't buy a pair of pike gear. Well, you know what I'm saying. Call me first. Write me. Actually, I also want you to write me. Now, I asked, a few people wrote in. Actually, a lot of patrons did. In about 2 weeks before Justin leaves for his 3 or 4 week hiatus, preseason dog training, not guiding, but just he always runs out to the west with his dogs, gets them on early sharp tails and huns before the season. He promised me we would get a podcast done. We've got a good solid handful of questions, but they become, that one's just like that one, that one's just like that one, that one's so please write me at ronb at the Hunting Dog Podcast if you've got a question for Justin or for if it comes down to NAVDA training or NAVDA testing. I'd be glad to throw that into the mix. But do that if it's a preseason thing, if something's going on in your training, perfect thing to do. I mean, if you haven't bought the Upland Institute, which would guide you through all of that, it's the perfect thing to do. Write me that question to Ron B at the Hunting Dog Podcast and say, Justin, what would you do if? Or what do I do when my dog does this? Anyway, so there. Onyx maps. Now, they will not run out of Onyx maps before hunting season or during hunting season or after hunting season. Obviously, they don't have to sew them together like Pike Gear has to do. So you will not, but that's another one. If you're an Onyx Elite member, you can get a whole lot of the Upland Institute stuff free and then make your decision up. And if you are a Upland Institute member that's not an Onyx Elite member, we will be sending you an email with a doozy. Now, you can get Onyx 20% off at Walgreens. I don't care what magazine, what podcast, they picked it up a little bit for anybody who's an existing Upland Institute customer. Yeah, they can become Onyx Elite, and nobody's ever saved this much money. That's the truth. You know, I think we had the Hunters Happy Hour last week, and we're going to be starting a show called Hunting Dog Podcast Trivia. And we kind of debuted it on the Hunters Happy Hour last Wednesday. We had about 1,000 people, short notice. We put a couple ads up on Instagram, told a few people about it, had about 1,000 people come in. But this is going to be a regular feature that I'm going to do once a month. And I'll tell you what, it's tough to get good questions with a little backstory. Can't just be like some of the ones I did were easy, like, how many teeth does a dog have? I remember Nick Larson said 23. So even if that was close, just here's a hint. It's an even number, Nick, not an odd number. Anyway, so that's going to be coming up here, and there's going to be some competition. If you are a patron of my show or Nick's show or Bob Owens' show, Lone Duck Podcast, if you are a patron of Tyler Webster's show, we are going to pick patrons one of these months to play against each other. And Ben Brennington from Onyx Maps, he jumped in from his hospital room. Not his hospital room, his wife and daughter's hospital room. He just had a brand spanking new baby, less than 29 hours old, and he jumped on from the hospital room, and he whooped everybody's butt. 10 questions about dogs, guns, people, places. Boy, that sounds like a shooting sportsman ad, doesn't it? And alcohol. And there will be some cigar and cigarette questions, always tied into the upland and hunting world. So be looking for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I will release those as just a regular podcast without me droning on like I've done for 6 minutes. If you haven't ordered your Boss Shot shells, please do so. I'm going to be heading down there probably this week, if not certainly the week after. And after I snag a bunch of shells out of there, there's going to be less shells for you to buy. Get your shells this year. Boss's new facility. If you're anywhere near southeast Michigan, in basically, for lack of a better term, the Benton Harbor area, you ought to go down there and see the plant and pick up your shells. Save some money on shipping. I would. Well, I'm going to. Actually, no, they're going to give me some shells, but that's all right. Walton's has just sent me a brand new grinder. Next week, we'll be looking for some Instagram stuff we're going to be putting out there. My daughter, my son-in-law, my other daughter, my other son-in-law, we are going to be grinding up some bear that I shot in Alaska and some boar that I got from Texas. Thank you very much, Mr. Boyle. We are going to make sausage for our trips, for my hunting trips. We're going to grind up. I don't know. It's a lot of meat. We're probably going to be grinding up, of course, adding some fat to it and shit like that. But I mean, we're going to be probably making 100 pounds of stuff. So look for that. And if you're looking to get into that kind of stuff, go to Walton's, get the catalog. Please do yourself a favor. Just get the Walton's catalog, and the rest is easy. Yeah. Get it if you haven't gotten your Gunner kennel or your Gunner food crate. I don't know what you're waiting for. There's nothing else I can say. The world's strongest, the world's only crash tested, and I mean crash tested. I don't mean bump tested. I don't mean tested by standing on it. I mean crash tested kennel. Now the food crate, I would not. First of all, there's no crash testing on the food crate, but I do hear a rumor that it's bear proof. Now that's just a rumor, but I'll tell you, the one I've got. Yeah, I would bet that a bear would just give up, no matter how good that Purina food smelled on the inside. Boy, now that was a segue. What is how I worked that Purina right into the food crate? Garmin, I just got a new TT15 collar, and I then went to hook that one up, and I found out that my Instinct watch is not. One of the buttons is finally, I've had this thing 3 years, and I work with this thing on. I'll run rotohammers at the job site when I used to work, and I still do a few jobs like that. Cut wood, swim with it, and it's still there. I mean, there's my heart rate. It's 12:13 and 32 seconds, Sunday the 31st. Everything looks good, but I can't. So I'm going to ask for the solar one. But where I'm going with that is, don't go into this season if you're looking for tracking and training equipment, or or you're looking to upgrade because you found out all the other stuff out there just kind of blows, and you didn't know you were going to have to use, I don't know. Anyway, go to Garmin, and if you are looking for Garmin, you don't buy direct from Garmin. Garmin sells this through distributors, and the number one distributor for Garmin collars is W Hunting Supply. That's right. Boy, I'm segueing into one to the other. And where you go to get customer service just like family service. I don't know what else to tell you. The episode I did with Walton's, and dealing with Boss and dealing with Pike Gear and even dealing with Onyx, it's like family. I love the fact that the people that sponsor this show, if I call them up, they don't not answer. They don't send back, please text me. They go, yeah, what's up, Ron? Or they send me a text, go, Ron, I'll call you in 5 minutes. That's how W and all my sponsors will treat you. Don't buy from somebody that you don't know and you can't go back to for help, okay? Once you get that, and you're like, okay, I'm starting to sort out shells from last year, decide on what guns I'm going to bring. I'm cleaning out my what? Say it with me. My deck drawer system. I'm cleaning it out. And I cannot believe I found my little Garmin InReach in there. I knew it was somewhere. And I'm still looking for my earplugs. I had those. Whoever gave me those, was it Sound? No, it wasn't Sound Gear. Anyway, a couple years ago, I'm like, I know I got them. They're not lost. I don't lose anything. But I do treat my deck drawer systems like a junk drawer. But every once in a while, you got to clean out the junk drawer. And then you find what you're looking for. I also found I found an envelope with $250 in it. What the hell that was doing in there, I have no idea. I don't even know if it was my envelope. It's amazing what you can find in a deck drawer system. Your Weatherby shotgun will fit perfectly into the deck drawer system, whether you just slip it into a case or you slip it into the deck drawer system gun rack. Now, if you want to if you want to look like Big Cheese on campus or Big Cheese in Wisconsin, you pull out that deck drawer and there's like 4 guns in there, just in their cradles. Like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't usually bring 4 guns with me, but I will show you some pictures of it. I installed it. I wanted to play with it, but I'll be honest with you. Come hunting season, I need my junk drawers. That's just the way I do it. And of course, I already talked to you about Purina, because when you have a food crate that even a bear can't get into, it protects your Pro Plan. That's right. Boy, I had some interesting facts on that. Purina was the first company to come up with the extruded kibble. It used to be like these squares and these biscuits. I'm talking back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Purina was the first company to come up with the extrusion process, which all dog food companies. So when you're the leader and the number one dog food company in the world, it's not surprising that you were the number one innovator of how to make good food for our dogs. And if you just want to tee it up a little bit for you and your dog, Canine Athlete and Wilderness Athlete products. Now, Canine Athlete, New Dog. I told you a couple weeks ago, I've been putting New Dog on Yugo's food. Yugo is the 12-year-old Brocco that I sold to my son-in-law way before he was my son-in-law, and that's how I got it all tied in. He started I messaged him, and my daughter messaged him back, and next thing you know, they're dating. So I've got his name is Dancing Duke Gordon, goes by the name Yugo. He's deaf as a doornail. When he got here, the only reason my daughter and son-in-law didn't put him down is because they knew that I would take care of him, and they just honestly. They didn't want to. They would have rather told the kids that Yugo's living with Grandpa, and we go on FaceTime, and the kids can see Yugo. But I think I made the mistake of giving him New Dog, because now he's not. Well, he ain't going to be around for 2 more years. But I'll tell you, when he got here, I thought he was ready to go. And I'm not saying New Dog's going to pull your 12-year-old dog and turn him into an 8-year-old to go hunt with, but he's in less discomfort. He's more active. He's more bright. And he's still deaf as a stone. But that's got nothing to do. New Dog cannot fix deafness, but it can make your old dog feel a little newer. And your younger dogs, hydrate and recover. Please don't do, especially this summer. I'll be bringing it up to Wisconsin when I run Tagus. He's going to be living on hydrate and recover. Well, that's for me, hydrate and recover. And me. We both live on it. Well, I use the energy and focus. Anyway, there. I talked about everything. I did forget to tell you. Now Gumleaf Boots is in a funny position. They were a longtime sponsor of the show. Couldn't get any boots during they could get a few boots during the pandemic. Just starting to get things back on the shelf. So really, if there's another one, if you think I'm not exaggerating about all the other ones, I'm really not exaggerating. Get a hold of Gumleaf Boots, check it out. And if they don't have your boots, also look at the hunting leads. These are the leads that I found when I was in Denmark about 15 years ago. On top of just being the coolest Jaeger lead with that European technology, snap-off bird rings for the summertime, bird carriers, snap-off leather lead that comes off the end. You can make a short leash out of it. You can make a long leash out of it. It's beautiful black saddle leather with beautiful chrome-plated. Oh, even if you're new and you got this lead on you and your dog, someone's going to go like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. You know what? At least look like you know what you're doing. And you can do that by getting a Jaeger lead from Gumleaf Boots, or a pair of boots, or a pair of Pike Gear pants, or a Pike Gear vest, or by shooting Boss shot shells, or by shopping at Walton's, or by putting your dog in a gunner kennel, or by using a Garmin collar, or by calling W Hunting Supply when you need something, or drop the tailgate and show everybody you got a deck drawer system. Pull the Weatherby shotgun out of it, right? When you're feeding, let somebody see that rolled up bag because you wanted to let everybody know you were feeding Pro Plan, right? At least look like you know what you're doing. You can fool a lot of people some of the time and some people all the time. And if you're a hunter and you just dress well and you got a nice rig and you got all this stuff, no one's going to doubt your prowess. The only thing they're going to doubt is your aim. Nothing I sell is going to make you shoot better than practicing. Take that one to the bank. Well, that was 16 minutes of babbling. Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I'm on the phone with James Jubran. Did I say it right, James?
Jubran, close enough, though, man.
Jubran. Yeah, well, look at my last name. You think I haven't gone through? See, Jubran. Yeah, I'm usually good phonetically, but I wouldn't have got Jubran. But anyway, James Jubran, who I met at Pheasant Fest, and actually was a pro. I think you wrote me an email prior to Pheasant Fest, and you sent me a really cool book that I immediately gave to my grandson. And at that age, I don't know how that it survived, but so I'm going to formally ask you for another copy. It was your Pheasants and Quail book. But anyway, James, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience because I just ramble on and people are going to say, "What, Ron? Where are we going? Where are we going with this?"
I'm used to that too.
Yeah. So, what did you and your brother do for the outdoor world?
Hey, so I'm James Jubran, one of the co-founders of Smile Outside. My brother and I, we create children's books for outdoor loving folks. Right now, we kind of aim towards the 5 and under category, looking to expand that in the future. But we set out on this mission about 3 years ago, and it's been a really fun trip so far.
When did the first book? Which was your first one that came out? Was it Pheasant and Quail?
Yeah. So our first release was in July of 2019. It was a 5-book set.
Oh, okay.
As we started the company off, we kind of didn't know which direction it would go, if it would take, or if it was going to plummet to a quick death. So we decided to kind of spread a little bit of a broad cast on our first attempt, and we did a 5-book set that covered a lot of the popular game of North America. So we did the Pheasants and Quail book.
Yep.
We did an Antlers book. We did a book called Coyote Lost Her Voice, which is a book about predators. Without calling the book Predators for a child. Yeah. And then we have a clean water book, because obviously the importance of clean water is paramount to our wildlife. And I think it's all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Antlers, duck
5.
and geese, clean water, coyote.
Oh yeah, ducks and geese.
From what I remember, like I said, my grandson Lincoln, who's now 2.5, he devoured that up, but I think literally he devoured that up. But I remember liking it because it was was younger than he needed, but it caught his attention, right? Like, I mean, his favorite book is Pout Pout Fish, but I mean, that's, it's the one Grandma reads him
very popular.
when he goes to, so, I'm not saying you're going to knock Pout Pout Fish off the sales, but, but I mean, I think just the pictures of the birds without being like we talked before we hit the button, without being so changed from what the bird really is. And, and he sees my magazines around. Like, I got a picture of him looking, literally, he's one of these kids that just gravitated to books. I don't know. I think it was just the moving of the pages, right? It was something he liked doing. Another one of my grandchildren in Florida, you bring a book over to him, he runs away. So it could just be Lincoln. But, the pictures, maybe it resonated because he saw those, those hand-drawn pictures, and it looks similar to what he always sees Grandpa looking at. I don't know what it is, but it resonated with him a lot. How did you pick that? What made you go with that kind of an illustration?
So Luke and I, when we were growing up, we spent a lot of time looking at our dad's magazines and fishing, hunting newspaper from way back in the day.
Yeah.
And then North American Wildlife Almanac. So we looked at realistic animals as we grew up. We didn't have books with cartoony looking animals that I can remember.
Right.
And it really helped forge our appreciation for wildlife, as we grew up. Of course, also, with our connection to the outdoors, it had big play in it also.
Right.
But so with my son, as he was about 3, I was reading books to him, and I noticed a lot of the books that I had, or most all of the books actually, they didn't really show animals, as they actually are. It's hard to decipher some of those animals, what they're supposed to be.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the narrative, and they're talking to each other, and going to the grocery store and wearing suspenders. Animals don't do that, right?
Right.
Which it's cool. Kids like it. I get it, but I think that there's another avenue that we need to go with the company, and that's what we decided to do, was to present animals as they naturally are in their real beauty as much as we can, and still make it fun for the kids. So the artistry it's beautiful. We have artists who did the artwork and depicted the animals in a very natural way, but still beautiful, bright, colorful, and entertaining for the kids.
Yeah, you could just see the covers. Now, I see you have a water series, or is that out now? The Fun Fish Reef in Cold Water?
Yeah, that's our second series of books.
All right, I'm looking. I'm jumping onto a website, so your website
Sure.
at the same time. So, the covers definitely would make a child look at it and go oh, it's kind of drawn for kids, but not kiddie looking. Yeah, it is.
Right.
You guys did a great job with that.
Thanks. And part of our hope too is to draw in some of the folks from outside of the Hook and Bullet group, and have them adopt these books for their kids and look at them and read from them and learn from them as adults. Even there's information that we get feedback that adults are learning things from them as they're teaching their kids. And we don't specifically talk about hunting in the books. By design, we wanted this to be an introduction and a gateway for some of those people who maybe they're anti-hunting, or they're on the edge of whether they think it would be fun or not fun, or if it should be allowed or not allowed. So we wanted it to be a gateway into our world for these people to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a smart move. I mean, personally, I don't think when I grew up, it wouldn't have mattered if it was about hunting and it was a children's book. It just didn't exist anyway. But when I read books at the it's the few, I think I told you the other day on the phone, the few books I ever read at the library that I took out a lot were always about something about animals, animals of the zoo, animals of birds of prey. And, those I would pore over, and they had nothing to do with hunting. It was getting me interested, and I was like an animal nut. So I think that sounds kind of like the same angle. It's, you're not trying to make hunters, you're just trying to make a generation of kids be like, oh, that's what that really is. I mean, short of showing them the, you're not going to show them the pheasant shot out of the air and on the grill yet. Maybe in the grown-up series, maybe in the 12-year-old series.
Right.
But
so it's if we can get them to appreciate the books or the animals in the books,
right,
from early on, that's how we end up building that layer of conservation mindset as they grow up, they're going to have that appreciation, that love for those animals, therefore want to make sure that they're still around. And that's kind of like the whole like basis of hunters nowadays. We look after the animals a lot more than people understand.
Right.
We have so much to do with conservation.
Yeah, I mean, and we could do a better job of it, but I think it's definitely, I've said this so many times on my podcast, I was and have been guilty of just buying a hunting license and thinking that was enough. And when I get an email from backcountry hunters and anglers or something, I'll actually look at it like, oh wow, I could vote. I can get a hold of my congressman and do something. So no, I think that's a great way to get kids. And like you said, if the books get sold to the right people, I think it, I don't want to say subliminally, but everything to a child kind of subliminally affects them. It's definitely better than a cartoon version. I mean, because I tell you, I also didn't learn to hunt from Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. You know what I mean? No. And then that's what I grew up on. Rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, duck season. And so that did not make me want to hunt. It just made me giggle, right? So yeah, I think that's a great angle and a great path to take. And I would tell anybody, we're going to yak about some hunting and everything else that we do, but the fact that somebody, of course, it would be a hunter that came up with this. I think that's doing a big part for the next generation or the next generations to come. So, and I got a bunch of grandkids, so it's really relevant to me. I want them to see that too. One of my daughters doesn't hunt. She's not anti-hunter, but I think that's what you were kind of saying. It was, if left to her own devices and not coming over to our house, I don't think my grandson would ever see a version of that for the animals.
Right.
So
yeah.
I personally appreciate it. Do you have a writing background, James?
Not to speak of. I took a lot of creative writing classes in my coursework in my undergrad program. I'm a teacher by trade. My degree is in education. My graduate degree is in education. So yeah. I mean, I have a pretty solid foundation of writing, but not in a formal way.
You formally hadn't written books or anything before this. It's just your education.
Correct.
Okay. How about your brother?
Yeah, and the same. Luke. He went to school for aeronautical safety science. He's now working for a company, and he's the health, safety, and environmental oversight guy for one of the companies here in Texas.
Oh, those are the guys in construction sites that we don't like. And yet he's a sportsman and he helps write children's books. I'm going to have to open up my view of the world a little bit. When I hear health and safety, I'm like, oh no, not those guys. They're going to make me put a harness on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's had it crazy the last couple of years too with all this going on.
Oh yeah. So I can't even imagine. And speaking of that, I mean, we're going to stay on the book side of it for a bit. That was not the ideal time for you, but what you were doing, it could be done during COVID, or was that an obstacle for you? Because you already had some books out, but
yeah. So we launched our first books, July prior to everything shutting down. Yeah. So a little bit less than a year we had running before things shut down. That first year of COVID, things slowed down just slightly, and since that first year, things have been progressing every year still. So we're still on a good upward trend. We're doing pretty good right now. I did want to. You mentioned the conservation topic about hunters. We used to think that buying the license was good enough.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Luke and I, over the course of the last decade, we've come to realize also. There's a lot of people out there on television, on podcasts, also who have really shined a light on what conservation is and can be, and our duties. So that was one of the important things that we kept in mind as we stepped forward with the company. We wanted to use it as a way to leverage funding for different conservation organizations. So we got our 2% for conservation certification. And we've pledged that no less than 50 cents from every book we sell goes back to conservation orgs. So that's a really important piece of our business. It takes a big chunk of our profits, but that and educating kids are our two main priorities. This is not a business that Luke and I set forth, expecting to get rich off of, right?
Right.
Self-publishing books is, I'm sure is probably not the most lucrative career. That's why we still have day jobs. So
Right. Yeah, self-publishing anything, self-doing anything it's a passion, and then sometimes it turns into something like we were talking before the record button. When I started the podcast, I didn't realize down the road I would literally have episodes about conservation. Like I'll be bringing on Nick Green next week or the week after, and he's one of the coordinators from MUCC, which in Michigan, we're really lucky to have Michigan United Conservation Club since the 1930s. Like they literally have an office in Lansing, and they keep a real watch on everything that's going on. So every organization from Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever, RGS, but all the little ones, sportsmen's clubs, they're all members under MUCC's umbrella, and they can do those action emails and get people like, hey, there's a fishing rule, there's a new rule here. There's they do a lot of work with the hound people, because the hound guys are, the first low-hanging fruit to go. And
sure.
So yeah, I mean, if anything, this episode will be a precursor to the one I'm going to do with Nick about being better at. I don't want to take after a new podcast right now, but we don't need new hunters. We need better hunters. We don't need more hunters. We need new, better hunters. You know what I mean? We just need we need less of what I was in the 70s, in the 80s, where I just showed up. I thought buying a license was enough. Now you're not going to get me to do a book, but that what I'd be hoping some publisher asked me to do. Did you go through any of the normal channels of seeing if a publishing company would take it over, or what was the path for that?
No, actually, we didn't. We looked into it very briefly in the beginning to see what that path would look like, and we quickly decided and came to the realization that the type of content we wanted to produce probably wouldn't mesh well with like the major publishers and the stuff that they usually produce, right? Because we don't have those cartoony animals and those narratives. So we figured it would probably be a very difficult path, and we just decided to do it ourselves. So that's how we went.
It had to be a pretty good learning curve. There's, it's not like there's just a one button click for, making your own book, right?
Yeah, no, it has been and still is a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
Neither of us have artistic abilities, so that was something we had to reach out to people for help with. Neither of us are great with computers, so a lot of the formatting, or all the formatting really, for the books to send to publishing, we don't do that either.
Right.
He and I strictly run the business, and we write the books and kind of plan out what the illustrations generally should look like. Right.
You got an idea but it's really up to that artist to take your interpretation and then turn it into what you want.
Exactly, Ron. Like when we talk to our artists, we tell them, okay, we kind of want this on the page. Go at it, because like telling them exactly what you want, I don't feel would be very easy for them to pull out their natural abilities and their natural eye for how things should look. So we've given them a lot of freedoms. Like, hey, put a pheasant on this page, and bam, they do their rendition. Or we want a brown trout on this page, do brown trout.
Yeah. So it sounds like your artists actually go above your expectations a little bit, don't they?
Oh, geez, yeah.
It's kind of like in the editing world, like when I did, the video series, I'm like, oh, this is going to be clunky. And then when an editor puts it together, like, oh, I guess it was a good idea. Yeah, I could see that.
It's amazing to see like what professionals can do with a product that they're used to doing. It's pretty cool. Like Luke and I, when we first started, we were like, okay, let's go on YouTube. Let's learn how to draw.
Oh, no, did you really?
I spent a day trying to learn how to draw. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, okay, this is not going to work at all.
Yeah, stick figures is just not going to be the key to success.
Exactly.
Give me some of the background, you and Luke, growing up where and your hunting. And I know you have a Griffon. It's getting up there. You said to me in an email he was 90% deaf at this point, but are you sure it's not 90% tired of hearing you yell at him? Or
Oh, that's what I suspected she was doing for a while. But then one of her litter mates that her breeder has also went deaf within a few months of her. So we figured it was, actually a real issue that she wasn't just being a jerk about. But yeah, she's 12 and a half, and yeah, she's getting up there. But Luke and I, we're in our late 30s. We've been hunting fishing forever. We don't have those very first memories of being out in the woods because we were just too young to keep those memories.
Right.
We started out, bird hunting, waterfowl hunting, and then small game hunting. And of course, as we got older, big game hunting has been introduced. I got a bird dog. But we started here in Texas. We moved when we were really young out to California, though. We spent a decade out in Northern California, which, it has an unbelievably tremendous amount of hunting opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, it's not what you think of when you think of California. Like, people who don't know California, man, if you go to Northern California, there's a lot of great opportunities for upland birds, for waterfowl, for big game hunting. Like, it's a great place, a lot of public land too that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
So we spent a decade there, then we moved to Florida, spent 11 years there, and we've been back here for the last, I don't know, since 2008, 9.
Yeah, but you're back basically in the hometown or home state where you started. You made a circle.
Hometown, yeah.
Now
exactly.
you guys didn't,
same place.
You guys didn't travel together after a while. You went to college somewhere. Luke went somewhere. I don't know that many. I know a few brothers that are really tight, but you guys must have had a special tightness to get into this together, because that's not easy either.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big concern in the beginning. Like, everyone says going to business with family is a bad idea. And, you never really want to listen to advice like that because you think you know better. And
yeah.
Luckily, so far, everything is going smooth. We have opposite strengths, so that works out.
Yeah.
We have different ways of thinking, so that works out. We do butt heads a lot just because we are brothers. We do have disagreements and arguments, but it's never something that like puts a strain on the relationship, and we just are able to figure stuff out the way we need to do it for the business.
Yeah, when I started, the last thing I started, somebody told me, they said, Ron, the only ships destined to sink are partnerships, and that scared me. I learned, wait a minute. Usually old sayings have some basis, right? It might be a corny old saying, but and they go oh, that's a real. I literally Googled that when this guy left. I was like, wait a minute, only ships destined to sink. I'm like, wow, this might be tougher than but no, I give you guys credit for not killing each other. And do you guys still hunt together?
Yeah, he's in the last couple of years moved up to Dallas to the facility that he works at now. So we don't get to get out as often as we do. It's only a 4-hour drive to Dallas from Dallas to Houston, but it's enough of a distance where we aren't out after it every weekend like we used to be. Yeah. So we have to be a little more intentional with our planning. And,
and kids get in the way of things. Kids tend to get in the way of things, or get you to write a book. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Luckily, he's at the age now. He's 6 now, where he's pretty capable of going on, a majority of the hunts that I go on now, even if I have to modify them, for him. But he enjoys the hell out of it, and he's a good hunting buddy.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I had daughters. My wife raised daughters, and I was around, and they kind of followed me a little bit, but not to the point where I actually had it was kind of, I would say it's kind of easier having daughters. 2 of them ended up hunting, but I think it was because when they got older, I think they just saw me do it enough, and they just thought it was interesting. But there's kind of that, I don't know, I could be completely wrong here, not being a father of sons, but when you have a son, it's almost like you want to and I know I'm not going to guarantee this, but I'd sure like you to at least shoot a shotgun someday, right? You
Yeah.
know? So I think down the road here, there's another series of books coming for you.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And
I
you
mean,
might have to get into the shooting sports with it, just for the right kids.
it's funny because, maybe like a year ago, we were tossing around some ideas for future books and, more different age groups. And I tossed out the idea of like, what would it be like to raise a kid and get them outdoors and, like what are some good things I've learned and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then I realized that somebody else was doing it that you may know. So
Oh,
I
was that
definitely not going to try to,
was that Mr. Ranella?
yeah, I'm definitely not going to try to compete with him.
No,
But
but you probably could have. In a few years, you could probably go to them for the publishing, if I know that.
possibly, yeah.
You and I also talked about my daughter Kelsey turned me on to a podcast called 1,000 Hours Outside. I think that was the name of it.
Yeah.
I listened to another episode today, or almost all of the episode, and it's definitely it's almost like when people started talking about the foodie thing, right? All of a sudden, hunters wanted to do better recipes instead of just filleting them and frying them and and cutting them up
Right.
and smoking them. So that thing kind of came along, and now it is great, and maybe it's because enough people your age that are still in touch with people my age are thinking like, well, if we don't do something, these kids are going to be, they could pass for an alien at, you know what I mean? They won't do anything, right? I mean, like left to their own devices, they could turn into a bowl of Jello. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Was there any of that in the back of your mind, like if this gets some kids outside, or was it? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I've been a teacher for the last 15 years. So, and I teach here in the city, like in the city, where it's a strange thing for kids to have put their feet in grass, right?
Yeah.
And I see it all the time, and it's definitely something that's plagued my brain for many years. Just like the fear of people losing touch with the outdoors and what it's like to be out there. And it was a really awesome experience I had. I finally got my district to grant me permission this past school year to take some of my students on a camping trip.
Oh, really?
So
At
I took a group.
Public school?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
I took a group of 14 high schoolers on their very first camping trip, and I thought I was going to be battling phones the entire time, but I was so impressed and excited. I didn't have to tell a kid a single time not to use their phone. They weren't on their phones. They were playing soccer and volleyball, hiking, and just having a good old time. And it was hot too. It was like 85, 90 degrees. So it's not optimal camping weather, but it was so cool. They had the time of their lives.
And these kids just didn't have that exposure. I mean, I grew up in the city of Chicago, but we literally, like we said, we played outside. We were outside 1,000 hours a year, just by the virtue of the fact that you were out till dark every day, and then bigger on weekends. So you took kids that literally had just no camping experience.
None. Zero.
Did you get someone to underwrite this, or did you just?
Listen, like it was crazy. It took me years of like begging and pleading and putting together like a really professional proposal for this entire thing. Like it had like Q&A in it, like what happens if a coyote comes. I'm gonna explain why a coyote is not a threat. I had a Q&A where it was like, what about bears? I'm like, there's no bears here. Like snake, like every possible situation that any person could ask, I had it all covered. It was pages long.
Wow.
And my principal was really, really supportive. And finally, after years of trying to do this, like the district finally was, gracious enough to allow that opportunity.
Yeah, and it's so funny that we could do a whole podcast about teachers, but I wouldn't be the right person to interview you about it. But the teachers had so much latitude to do what they wanted when I was a kid. It goes right along with the awareness of food, the awareness of hunting. It's all changed so much for the kids that if you don't have books like this and books like Steve's and podcasts like, I can't remember that lady's name, darn it. If you know it, throw it in there. That there's literally parents that they're already one generation that hasn't been out that much. And then now to go that one more generation, it's almost like nobody's fault. It's just that it disappeared, you know?
Right. Fast, really fast.
Way fast, just like everything in the last 20 years. It's just, you know, I still wonder why my phone sounds like my voice on a phone. You know, like, wait a minute, shouldn't we all sound like a robot? You know what I mean? So, but what I had growing up as a kid, the access to the library, the access to the streets and literally the alleys and the railroad tracks, granted we had, you know, parents that were not, I don't want to say, I know they must have loved us, James, you know, but boy, they let us do some sketchy stuff. But in general, I don't think it did us any harm, you know. And you're only a generation and a half behind me, and sounds like you and your brother got to flip rocks and grab.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember just like going for bike rides and, you know, be back later when I was in first grade. I was cutting the grass when I was in first grade. So I was like, I don't see kids doing that kind of stuff these days. And
I don't see kids cutting the grass at all. That's a whole nother subject too. But
so it's just one of the reasons that we, you know, felt so strongly about getting books like this into the hands of kids at a young age.
Yeah, and getting it into the parents of those parents, again, not by fault, but just by lifestyle, literally aren't doing anything outside. I think that's cool. Give me some background on your dog. What's your dog's name? I love picking on dogs.
Okay. Her name is Bryn. Brynn. One syllable.
Okay. That's
quick
good.
call.
Quick call. Bryn. So when you're really mad at her, there's no middle name. There's no long version of it. Where did you get Bryn from? And were you must have been in Florida at that point then?
No, I had just moved to Texas. It was the first year I moved back here. Yeah. Okay. My ex-wife, my wife at the time, we went back and forth with names, and I thought, you know, it was going to be my hunting dog, I would have, you know, supreme reign over name calling. I was wrong. But I was able to negotiate it down to a single syllable, and that's what we ended up settling on. I like the name; it's a good name. It works for her, it works for me, it works for the dog. So,
yeah, it's not Haggarus or anything, or Hagrid at least. You know, you didn't. You didn't go full Harry Potter like my kids did on a litter of dogs.
Exactly. I just needed it to be something quick and sharp, so that worked.
Right. So what was it like? Did you? I guess where I'm saying, like, when you get the dog, like I'm thinking you're in Texas, the last place I'd probably find a Griffin for sale, but Griffins you can find anywhere, of course. Did you go way out of town for that? Did you? Because it's a dog that's not made for Texas, technically.
Right.
Yeah.
No, not at all. So I did a lot of research, and, you know, I do a lot of waterfowl hunting, and then there's also, you know, up on here, and then I settled on a dog that I needed to be, you know, well-behaved and calm temperament in the home. I needed it to be a machine in the field, and I needed it to be a medium-sized dog, and to withstand temperatures of both cold and, you know, the whole process you go through. I settled on a Griff. Actually, Luke brought the breed to my attention. I hadn't even heard of the breed at that time.
Yeah.
And there weren't a lot of breeders at that time. There was, I think, at that moment, there was only like 1,500 to 2,000 dogs in the country.
Right. Okay.
So the breeder I found, he was in Delta, Colorado. He's now in Montana. It was Spruce Creek Griffins, and talked to him a lot. Saw what kind of breeding program he got going, and settled on him, and then waited for a puppy to come up, and then made the drive to Colorado and brought her down. She was the shortest haired pup in the litter.
Yep.
And so we decided that would probably be the best dog for down here, and that wire coat comes in really handy in this, you know, cactus thorny area as well.
Oh yeah. When, you know, I've got several real good friends that have Griffs, and when you get one that's really not the coat the Griffin was supposed to have, you know, the Griffin should have a somewhat flat laying harsh coat, and when you get that good coat, they can get used to the heat like anything. You know, I've worked in construction in Houston, in fact, probably 6 years ago. I didn't wear, just a pair of gym shoes. I still had to wear work boots and a work shirt and a welding. You can get used to the heat. And now the dogs have to be conditioned to get used to it. But it's odd that that you picked a Griffin, but you kind of went with the breed description of it. You were more concerned about having a temperament first, possibly, and then coat and talent. Well, you got all three. It sounds like. Yeah.
Well, I definitely got all three.
Of course, it's your dog.
Right. And at the time, I was doing a lot more waterfowl hunting than upland, and it's kind of leveled off now that I have a dog. I do a little bit of both. But in the beginning, when I was training her, those first few years of really hard training, I was doing so much more waterfowl hunting with her that her steadiness in the field definitely lacks because of that. Like, she just thinks that everything needs to be retrieved right away.
Right.
So, I don't do as much upland with her. So her pointing is, I don't want to say flash points, but she stays close. She stays close enough to be a good enough dog for me at this point.
So you're saying Bryn's a better waterfowl dog than an upland dog. Is that what we're saying here? Come on.
She's such a good waterfowl dog that I challenged my friend who had champion Labradors to a retrieving contest. That was
Did you really?
Huge mistake.
Tell me how that played out. Come on. That sounds like something that was beer induced.
No, actually, I was at his property turkey hunting, and we had the dogs out just throwing bumpers in his pond. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, my dog can beat yours out to that bumper and back. So we lined the dogs up, sent them both, and I thought my dog was fast in the water, and it wasn't. It wasn't. That lab smoked her. and then Bryn went for to grab the bumper out of that lab's mouth, and that lab let her know who the boss was, and it worked out fine. But she's still listen. In the 12 and a half years I've had her, I've probably, with combined me and everyone I've ever hunted with, we've probably only lost 3 birds ever.
Well, if you're telling me you're hunting in some states, I might call on it. But if you're in an area that the dog in the size area, I mean, that just shows the tenacity and the nose strength. Because when it comes to not losing a duck, that's hard to do because, that's got to take.
Oh.
That's where you should have challenged your lab buddy. You should have got it set up into a cattail marsh where the lab can't see anything, and the Griff's prey drive would go beyond the lab's prey drive.
I hunt the coast a lot, so we have that tall marsh grass, sawgrass stuff.
Yeah.
So she's an invaluable conservation tool.
Yeah.
Her drive is just go, 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 go. She doesn't give up. During her NAVDA tests, she always did great on her searches and water work. She excelled in that, but just to no fault of her own, her pointing just never held up to where it could have been.
James, always blame it on the lineage. Don't blame it on yourself. Okay?
I've seen her litter mates hunt though.
Well, okay, then it's your fault. Okay, it's your fault.
It's 100% my fault, Ron.
Because I always tell everybody, I said, don't worry about it. Pointing's an instinct. It comes in different degrees, but I could see where she thought everything was hers and well, he's going to shoot it for me anyway. So
she pointed better her first 6 months of life than she ever has.
Yeah. Well, so you said NAVDA. So did you run her through a puppy test or a utility test too, or what? I did
the puppy test, and then I did the practice. I did the practice utility test also.
The UPT. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You judge NAVDA if I'm.
Yeah, I did.
Correct.
I did up to last September. Yeah, I did that for a little over 20 years. And
retired, huh?
Well, it was a forced retirement, which I'm now disclosing on the podcast. It's a long story, which we don't have time for. But anyway, I almost call it the corporate world. When you're a judge, there's a lot of rules, a lot of this, a lot of that. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about when you grew up and then back when I grew up. You're kind of you had some leeway with things. And for some reason, just like what I was teasing about your brother being in, health, safety, and occupation, that kind of engineer, they almost have to come up with like safer things, right, on a job site. It's like,
Right.
well, what we still have an accident. We still have an accident rate here. So what can we do to improve this? Instead of saying, how about we get better workers who follow the rules, right? So yeah, their corporate rules I don't miss, but the people and seeing people's dogs come out, especially the puppies, I surely miss that. I've got a puppy getting ready for a test myself, and I feel. You remember what you felt like when you were handling your dog in the NA test? You didn't know what you were doing.
Oh, my
but
God.
You had the dog that kind of knew what it was doing, right?
Yeah.
Now, I have the opposite. I know what's going on, and my dog doesn't know what's going on. I'm like, how could I get this wrong? I've had this dog for a year. He's not ready for this test. So, yeah, I'm going to be on the other side of the fence here in August. So that's going to be a podcast in its own. We're going to actually videotape the whole podcast after the test because I'm expecting it to be comical. So, yeah.
How many dogs are you running?
Just one, just a pup. A wire-haired Vizsla that I have right now.
Oh, nice. They're beautiful dogs.
Yeah, he is. I like him a lot. I saw things early on. I'm like, oh, you're pretty laid back. And he's kind of staying laid back. So I'd like a little bit more go, and I'm like,
yeah.
Where's your go button? I keep feeling like underneath his, like, no, that. Where's the go button on you? He's so sweet. He's like, I could never do anything else besides own him for the next 12 years, but I'd like to find that go button. But anyway,
it'll kick in.
Yeah,
I have faith.
I'm sure it will. I have seriously held back on not doing too much with him. It might have bit me in the butt, but I've got 6 weeks to kick it in gear here a little bit. So yeah, but I remember what those days were like. So what? I got to go back to your Griffin. You say the pointing got worse after it was a puppy. Was it good enough in a puppy test to show that it pointed, or did it get a bad pointing score? Do you remember?
She didn't get a good score. I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I think it was like a 1 or something like that.
In pointing,
yeah, she got prize 3 overall.
Oh,
so
she did all right then.
Yeah, I was still happy.
Oh,
I was a nervous wreck though, man. Like my mentor, he kept trying to tell me to chill the hell out because he's like, your dog is feeding off you right now. Like you need to calm down.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it at the time. Like I was like, how the hell is that? And then over the years, like hunting with her and running the UPT, like I definitely understood. Like, yeah, she's feeding off my energy 100%.
Right. Yeah, it's like it goes back to kids. The calmer you can be and the more consistent you can be, it just good things happen. And dogs pick up on it just like kids and dogs are like the same. Only dogs get to be a teenager in a year, and it takes kids 13 years to get there. But there's a lot of analogies. I'm sure you can see there's some points where your dog could remind you how your son's acted, and your son reminds you how your dog acted.
I make comparisons between kids and dogs so many times, and people hate it. People hate it, but
I do it all the time. All the time.
If you have a dog that has a purpose and you're training a dog, the comparisons are so straightforward.
Yep.
It's ridiculous, but people just absolutely look at me cross-eyed when I say that kind of stuff.
Oh no, I say it to ad nauseum. I mean, people they're like, okay, Ron, we know. Like my biggest one lately, when we get new members out at the club, they'll say, when should I? They got this 8-week-old, 10-week-old puppy. When should I get it in front of birds? I'm like, how about just get to know it first a little bit? Let it get to know other dogs. Let it get to know the truck, the crate. You don't need to throw that stimulus in. And kind of like it goes to the same thing with kids. When they're 2, you don't expect them to read a book. You're just happy if they look at the book, right? And you read them the book, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of analogies where you don't need to rush it with it. But then all of a sudden, with a dog, boom, they're there,
Right.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I held off on bird introduction until as late as I could. I had everything else, in a routine at the house, and then I didn't pull a pigeon out until I introduced her to water. She was a little hesitant at first with water, so I didn't push her. Mm-hmm. And then I took her out, and it was like 99 degrees in Houston, and I tossed a pigeon in a puddle, and it was over. That was it.
The water was okay then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Griffs are usually I don't want to say, I'd say way more than average. They're usually good in the water, especially for a bird. Was she a dog that didn't care for the bumper thing, or did she eventually go for the bumpers and everything for fun?
No, I mean she like her retrieving. Her limitation is just me, right? Like I probably could have, if I really wanted to push, I probably could have pushed her to do like double, triple blind marks, like whatever I wanted to do with her, I could have. She's that like just focused in the water and just loves retrieving to a fault. I think like that's
it can be
that's where I screwed her up on the that's where I screwed her up on the pointing. Like I see her when she creeps up on some birds, and like I'm like, oh, okay, she just wants to retrieve.
And every time a dog does that, it's one more time the dog believes it did it right.
Right.
So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy at some point. I hate to bring it up, but do you have another dog plan in the future?
God.
Oh, come on now, James.
I'm in a conundrum.
Okay.
So my life right now has become busy, very busy, and it takes me to different places around the country for just both personal reasons, like hunting.
Yep.
I do a lot more big game hunting now, and and then also just with the businesses. So I don't know. I hate dumping her off at my parents when I go out of town.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. Like I'm struggling right now. I know, like I'll be without a dog pretty soon. So I don't know. Like I keep, I don't know yet. I want one, but then again, I want to be responsible about it too. So,
well, you're just gonna have to give up big game hunting then. I'm sorry.
I don't know about that.
Oh, come on now. Come on. Come on. You can go to you can go to the store and buy some good meat. You just can't find anything that flies that's good at the store. Come on. Do you do a lot?
That's true.
What kind of big do you hunt a lot in Texas, or do you go out of state for hunting for big game?
I apply out of state, many different states for anything. Like all big game I apply for in 6, 7, 8 different states. Most of the time, obviously, I spend here in Texas, just because odds. But so I do a lot of whitetail hunting here, a lot of hog hunting, and then lots of waterfowl hunting.
Yeah. Did you ever try using Bryn for any blood tracking? Did you ever give that a thought?
I gave it thought a lot, but I never took that leap. I don't know why. I think once I was, like more interested in it, she was already well established in her hunting career, and I didn't want to risk having any adverse effect. But I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, just curious.
She probably would have done fine. That's what the breed there for, right? They're a versatile breed. They do it all.
Yeah.
But
so what's coming up on the book front for you and your brother? I kind of gave a few of the titles, but what I would imagine that this is not the end of the series, right?
No. So our last book that we put out was, I think it was August of last year.
Okay.
So it's been almost a year. That was the tracking the ABCs, which, speaking of dogs, it's all about hunting dogs, both bird dogs, retrievers, and hounds.
Yeah.
It utilizes different obscure breeds for the most part. There's some common breeds in there also, just to introduce the alphabet. I can't remember if I sent that book out to you or not. But
You did. Yep. But at that point, it was with my in fact, that's why I think I'm not gonna ask you for one. I'm just gonna order one because I already got stuff. No, seriously, I remember that one. But he was like probably 9 months at the time, and there was just no point. But now it's a great age. Like he's getting his numbers and his ABCs.
I'll get some books to you, man. Don't worry about that. Don't be crazy. So then,
it goes to conservation, though. I mean, so.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
I'll still put that money to conservation. Okay. How about that?
All right, that's fair.
All right.
Yeah.
So like in the next year, we're planning on putting out a couple more single books. Can't really go into too much detail on what they are, and then we have a long range plan for another book that's probably a 2 or 3 year project. It's a really like in-depth project. It's going to take us a while to put together.
Wow.
But that's if it comes together the way we envision it, it's going to be a really cool book.
Yeah.
Really cool book.
And it's going to hit a broader audience then? Oh, is that safe to say? Or do we not say?
I mean, broader. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to you more about it off camera.
Okay. Is it going to be? How about this? Is it going to have illustrations in it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, all right. Then we can somewhat picture it. Okay. No, it sounds like a neat. I mean, I've had a lot of interviews, and this is my 8th year, and I was like, I know this is the first time that anybody came up with, children's books for based on the outdoors and stuff, and yeah, it is refreshing. I see all the books that my grandson. I don't see my other 2 grandsons because they're 1,000 miles away. I see them enough, but I don't see them a lot. But I see my other grandson's books, and I think the fact that you and your brother did this, I mean, it kind of says about your personalities and what you believe in, and kind of like we could get on that, like, boy, if we don't do this, who's going to do it kind of a thing. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Random House isn't going to put it out. So, I think we all have a little debt of gratitude to you because, there isn't anybody that listens to this show that doesn't either have a niece, a nephew, or a kid of their own. I mean, somewhere.
Right.
Or a neighbor's kid. Or you got to show up at a 1-year-old, 2-year-old birthday party. Nobody wants to go to those anyway. It's a perfect gift idea, right? You're given a book, but you're giving them the right book. Yeah.
100% agree. That's why, And speaking of Random House, if anybody from Random House is listening, we're happy to partner up with y'all and
Right.
work together.
Because,
So
you can show the success now of the book. You said something. They're sold at Bass Pro too. Didn't you tell me that in an email?
yeah, back about a year and a half ago, Bass Pro Cabela's, they picked up 2 of our titles for their stores.
Mm-hmm.
And just last week, they emailed us asking us to add a 3rd book to their stores. So
That's
I'll be
great.
shipping those out this week, actually.
Great. Well, did I miss anything? Is there any anecdotal stories from starting a children's book series that we missed that are worthy of? Apparently, you and your brother didn't get into a fist fight, so that's good.
No fist fights over books. No.
No, that's not bad. How does your son like the books?
He's read them so many times now. He's over them.
Does he read them to you before bed then?
So he's getting to be a really good reader. So yeah, I'm pulling him out every once in a while, reading them. Right now he's stuck on a different book. It's actually a book that I got when I was in 1st grade. It still has my name in it.
Oh really?
It's called The Judge. Yeah, it's about a judge that throws some people in jail, then a monster eats the judge. But yeah, it's a funny book.
All right. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, that's all right. No, I think that's funny. Like I said, I thank you. I think a lot of people's kids are gonna. I mean, you can't say it's gonna change things, but if you don't try, it's not gonna get better on its own. And just the appreciation of nature alone can build that up, and can give us. I always say, like everyone says, the next generation of hunters, but that's not a guarantee, And
Yeah.
So stuff like this is really. What's the word? I'm trying to just give you this right sentence of praise and accolades, but I don't know how to fit it in. But yeah, I think you and your brother did a great job. You did a great job.
Appreciate it, Ron. I really do.
So what's the best way when people are looking? They can go everywhere to get these books besides having to stop at Bass Pro and get one of the 3?
They can go to our website. It's the best place to do it, smileoutside.com.
Mm-hmm.
They can try to search for them on Amazon. We just got them on Amazon pretty recently, so it's difficult kind of to find on Amazon right now, to be honest.
Right.
There's a number of smaller retailers across the country that carry them. But just our website probably is the best place.
Yeah.
And if you want to offer your folks a discount, we can do that too for being supporters of you.
Sure.
Is there a code? Is there a code that would work for you?
Just
Like
we
a
could just
10%
do,
off coupon?
Yeah, we just do HDP. That's what I tell most people. HDP Hunting Dog Podcast 10.
Perfect.
That'll be
I'll
fine.
make sure I get that in today.
I'll put that on, and I'll tell people to go to Smile Outside and get the next book for their baby, their kid, their niece, their nephew, their grandchild, or whoever it is, or their neighbor's kid. If you think the neighbor's not
Oh, the
doing it.
neighbor's kid.
Yeah, if the neighbor's kid's not getting outside enough, slide that book, just somehow shoot it up into the mailbox. They'll take it.
Exactly. Help a kid, help conservation, and help the future of our wildlife.
Yeah, no, that's great. James, I appreciate you coming on. I'm glad we got to meet at Pheasant Fest. And are you going to try to get up to Minneapolis next February?
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be there for sure.
Yeah. Are you going to be in mass with the books or just glad-handed?
We'll be in a booth again. It'll be our third time at Pheasant Fest, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, let's get your booth closer to our booth. We'll let you know where we're going to be when you. I know we all have to deal with Luke from Pheasants Forever when we get our booth. So get your booth closer to our booth.
That sounds good, man.
All right.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me on today.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ron.
Let me.